Okay, the timekeeper is late.
Not a good sign.
So let's begin. No, I don't need a timekeeper.
Are you sure?
I want infinite time.
Oh, I don't think that's
No,
wise.
not good. We need a time.
Thank you very much for coming to my talk. Let's begin. Specialisation. I will start by setting out the key points, my conclusions, and then we will work through them all the way to the end. My key points in this talk are that specialisation is inevitable, it's highly beneficial for your business, it's a very useful concept for the analysis and planning of your work. The last 3 talks just today at this conference, everyone has relied on the careful collection of data and analysis to make all their arguments. I strongly advocate it. But if you use the word specialisation when engaging with your clients, it's extremely counterproductive. It panders to the ignorant expectations of the market. It validates them while debasing you and wastes precious opportunities to deliver the most important educational point to an unenlightened world. We will define some terms and then ask and answer these questions. Now, first a couple of notes. I'm sure you all know that optimal speaking speed is 100 words per minute. But I only got 25, so I'm going to speak at 136.9 words per minute. But if any of this is any good, you'll soon be able to enjoy a video of it on my website. Note number 2, I use the word translator and translation to refer to all modes. Note number 3, I assume that I'm talking to people who want to do this for a living. In other words, to live. In other words, if they fail, they die or do something else for a living. People with bills to pay and children to feed and dreams to make come true. If you are not like that, if you have some other source of income like an inheritance or a day job or a spouse, you're only doing this out of interest or to enhance your standing in your community, let me be clear, you're not helping, okay? You don't actually care if you make a living, and you will accept prices that actually control the flow of work that satisfies those other needs. So every time a working professional complains about rates or annual income or the volume of work, remember it's the luxury translators who are dragging us all back. They lead end users to develop unrealistic ideas of the value of translation, and they provide the agencies with abundant cut price options which they exploit to get the big government tenders. I know it sounds harsh, but we are competing not with government policy and not with NATI or anyone. We're competing with people who did not commit, okay? Now, full disclosure, and to be fair, I spent 10 years being exactly that person, okay? So I was just as bad. Now I understand what I was doing. And I celebrate your freedom to make lifestyle choices, but let's understand who I'm addressing here. All my talks are on this basis, that I'm addressing people like that. This is my life story with all my talks. There's all my talks up close. In this red area here, I was a very active member of AUSIT, and I had a great time. I learned so much, met some wonderful people. I highly recommend membership in AUSIT. When I joined, there were all these conversations about rates and poor treatment, and no one respects us and no one understands us. Nothing's changed. As a translator, I naturally wanted to understand the key terms and concepts that everyone was relying on, but I found that hardly anyone had defined the key terms and concepts. Translators, the irony. So, for example, everyone talked about community interpreting. What is it? What isn't it? To claim that there's a category is to imply a scheme of categories which account for all kinds of interpreting, and that's just one of them. But when I looked into this, it didn't seem that it was that tidy at all. There was no scheme of categories like the animal kingdom, which accounts for all animals, or the table of elements, for example. There was nothing like that. In fact, even the academics wouldn't agree. Community interpreting, it's all over the place. So I published a glossary in the AUSIT newsletter. It used to be on the AUSIT website. Imagine that. That's until I was erased. Now, right, I've moved on. Let's define some key concepts, okay? At least you'll know what I intend when I use these words. And that puts me ahead of a lot of people. But here are the key terms and concepts for this talk. Scheme of categories, specialisation, let's go through them. That should account for everything and leave nothing out, yeah? Specialisation today means minimisation of unpaid preparation time per job. Once you get that down to close to zero, I think you can say you specialise in that kind of work. Professional development of you as the individual. Your contribution to the development of the profession as a whole. And translation. This is my highly unorthodox definition of translation. Please note carefully, it does not mention mode or setting or industry or subject or anything. It's just translation. And it is only translation that people are prepared to pay for. No one cares about the other stuff. It's very hard to fit all of our work into a scheme of categories so that it's all neatly analysable, okay? But the categories that people generally rely on popularly without thinking about them very carefully, like community translation, conference interpreting, technical translation, court interpreting, do they fit into tightly constructed schemes of categories? Not in the slightest. They're ridiculous. And I'll show you why in a minute. They are named after some government spending account or a building or an event. They are all far too crude. They lack all the detail that would be required to do justice to the actual work that we do. And they serve the interests of other parties. Other parties have a strong interest in having short conversations that do not challenge their preconceptions. Apart from the interests of our client, the only interests that we should be serving as professional practitioners are these. Are we educating people? Are we getting better at our job? And are we succeeding? If everything you do isn't hitting those targets and ending up there, what are you doing? You're a professional. Now that includes giving careful thought to the meaning of the words that you use, like specialisation. If it slips into a conversation between you and a client or a colleague when you are engaging with the world, yeah? Now I'm fortunate to be male, Japanese speaking, in Melbourne, which is the centre of manufacturing. I got exposed to such a wide variety of work in every mode and setting and topic and industry. And what that forced me to do was to see that there is a common thread running between nearly every kind of translation work. And I'm also a data freak, and I've saved my data from every job I've ever done for my own purposes, because it's very helpful. Again, I recommend that you do it. And I have tried, out of interest, but also because it's very useful, to analyse my own client profiles, my own work history. And there's many different ways you can do this. There's a lot of ways to slice the pie. Let's have a look. By domain, yeah, we don't do a lot of community work. By mode, yeah, so it's mostly interpreting. But you could all do this, and it would look different for everyone. And I would so love to see it. I'd pay to see it, yeah, if you all did this. Imagine that. Here's a good one, Scopos, yeah? Let's go through the receive only. That's when you're translating something from somewhere else and the person being translated has no idea they're involved because they're dead or something. Send only, that's all published material, marketing, brochures, anything that is going out to an unknown readership or audience, yeah? Then there's interest only. Now we have a dialogue, two parties who know each other exist, but they don't care what happens next. Negotiation, they care what happens next. They're after something, yeah? And then we get to obligation. They got somewhere, signed the contract, they're in bed together, and now they have to make things happen. That's the bulk of my work. And this is a side note, but see this last one, dispute resolution, that's all the work we do for law firms, yeah? When things have gone wrong, and now they really have to pay. But if I had done this, well, I did do this analysis about 15 years ago, dispute resolution was the next biggest category for us, and I'm wondering, is that AI that's taken that work away from me? I don't know. But when we are engaging with the world, the market, the client, the colleague, none of these do justice to the actual work I do, which is to convert strings of words from one language into another. Now, this is the best I've achieved, and I know it's a little bit hypocritical here, but it's the subject matter of the actual sentences. It's hypocritical because I'm using law as this category. I've gone down to 3 levels of detail. So everything legal, which I'm dismissing as a too crude a category, but then I've filtered it down into further, let's choose competition law, and then I've done jobs and all of those different categories there. And that's a little bit arbitrary, yeah, but it's very helpful because they accumulate, and that data helps me look when I've done the previous jobs. I can go back to my notes, my glossary. That helps to minimise my unpaid preparation time for every new job, yeah? But you know that all the work we do would even be impossible to capture in a system like this because it is so varied, yeah? But that's the fact that it's varied so much and can't be summed up even in a system like that. That is a symphony of startling novelty. And it's the only one we should be playing to our uneducated market, yeah? But we're not typists, we're not taxis or tubes of toothpaste or wallpaper merchants. We don't just turn them on and turn off. We don't just turn up and translate. Moment by moment, our raw material, sentences, present us with a cavalcade of new challenges. That's the story people need to hear. Instead, we're bundling it all up in featureless lumpen categories that conceal the very aspect of our work that would lead people to understand that we're valuable geniuses. Instead, these categories exist because our clients like to have things named after them. How many times in my life have I had this conversation in my head where they say, so what's your specialty? I say, translation. They say, no. What kind of translation? I say, my clients come from all walks of life. But the activity in which I have specialised knowledge, which I practice relentlessly, making me the person you had to call to solve your language barrier problem, is translation. Nouns, verbs, adjectives, logic, syntax, grammar. Yeah? It might look different to you if I work in court one day and hospital the next and a factory the day after that, but seen through the goggles of a translator, it's all precisely the same task. The only difference for me is the time it takes to prepare for each job. And my methods of preparation would also be an alarming mystery to you because you're not specialised in translation. Now, I don't get to say that to many clients. Oh, boy, I wish I could. If we keep reinforcing the idea that subject matter expertise is the primary requirement for a translator, then we are going to continue to undermine ourselves and forego income to these people. This is the story we must ultimately tell the world. And every time we use one of these sycophantic gimcrack categories like medical interpreter, contract translator, we simply postpone the day they hear it. And then everyone says, oh, they don't understand us, they won't pay us. Whose fault is that? Don't complain about lack of respect when you consistently avoid the hard work you have to do to educate the market. Now let's look at the upside. All this data also directs me to previous jobs I've done, helps me plan. This is the diagram. Now we're talking about how specialisation happens, yeah? This is a timeline, there's a job coming up, this is when they booked, yeah? And you need to fill in this gap. You've got a lot of knowledge already, but you're going to have to prepare for this job because it's got some specialised knowledge, yeah? So we go to our preparation time. This angle governs the maximum rate that you can increase your skills and knowledge between being booked and the job starting. And it's governed by things like how much briefing you get from the client, your skills to do research, your cognitive ability, the time you had and all the rest of it. The job comes, you didn't reach perfect knowledge, you never do. But now, by the way, if you split that up, you end up with a very detailed practical program for professional development, yeah, if you want to work on your skills. We get to the job, these things are now relevant, but we've got fresh baked contextual information from the mouth of the horse here, and it rockets up, but we still don't get to perfect knowledge and the job's over. However, the next job that comes along, now look, if it's the same job, similar job, look at how much we've reduced our unpaid time, divide that by what you get paid, much better hourly income, and the people notice. You're going to rock up and they're going to say, this person knows, this guy/girl knows about our business and our subject and what we're doing, and they are going to start recognising that and say, no, let's ask for this person by name next time. You have just started to specialise, yeah? Now, I don't charge for this. So let's just go off on a tangent. People suggesting that we should get this for free is outrageous. It's not the responsibility of your client to pay for your professional development. We're not meant to be placing burdens on them. We're meant to be making their lives easier, and that's why they would pay us money. It's not the responsibility of any body or organisation to develop the profession. By definition, as per my glossary, a practitioner is a professional precisely because in the course of their work, they may have to make decisions and judgments about things that no one else has ever confronted. without the option of consulting some larger organisation or phoning a friend, because the individual professional is necessarily subject to the critical interest and timelines of their clients, yeah? We are the frontline commandos in the battle of life, and it's the quality of the decisions we make that give the word professional such weight and meaning. There's a lot of hard work to do if you want to be that person and make those decisions, and it takes years. That hard work includes getting as much experience as possible in as many fields and settings as possible, and collecting and using all the data from all that experience and sharing whatever insights you have with your professional colleagues at this conference. That's the only way a profession develops. And contributing to the professional development, the development of a profession, is an ethical obligation of a professional practitioner. Because the minute you dare to call yourself professional, you have obligations. You have a duty to understand them and manifest them. And if not, you are deriving financial and reputational advantage from vulnerable people based on bad quality or zero arguments. That's unethical. No government or organisation or institute is in this space. They are ethically neutral. The only thing that can make ethical choices is a human being. That is why I strongly opposed corporate membership for AUSIT back in the day. I don't know what happened after that. But anyone who offers free PD, I'm just telling you, like your mum, do not take lollies from the man in the white van, okay?
Chris, we didn't reinstate it, it's still out.
Good. Thanks, Dave. No regulation or policy settings or government intervention or code will develop the profession. This is the mechanism repeated iteratively thousands of times over and over again, and then with all talking to each other. That is the only way a profession develops. Regulations, policy settings, all of those entities are hypocritical and corrupt, and they will only frustrate and retard our efforts. Now, let's sum up our questions. Yes, specialisation will happen to you, yeah? And it should and will be great for your business, but you have no idea what it will be. I suppose I'm talking to people just starting out. It will be a function of your abilities, your interests, your personality, market conditions, economic factors that are far beyond our ability to predict or even understand, the network of clients and contacts and friends you develop during that time, and the reading and talking and learning that you do on purpose and by accident all throughout those years. And it's all going to be unique to you. The key thing here is that to find out what your specialisation is, you need to try everything. Everything, go everywhere, have a go, no matter what. And it's only by this quest, this personalised frenzy of market engagement, that you will start to see patterns appear and opportunities emerge, and you'll start to realise that you now have an advantage. You've got accumulated knowledge, you've got an advantage. You've got an advantage of all of those people who didn't come to this talk and who have squandered years and $60,000 on a master's degree because they made the naive error of starting out saying, I just want to do medical. The key messages of this talk are, specialisation is great, it's going to happen, reduce unpaid preparation time and increases your general knowledge. To do that, you don't seek to specialise, but try everything and anything. And don't take my word for it. Everyone learns the hard way eventually. Let's just say you said, oh, I don't want to do interpreting, it's too stressful, I had a bad experience once, I'll only translate. Then it's been 2 weeks since you got a job, the baby's crying with hunger, the bills are piling up higher and higher, and the phone rings. And someone says, look, I know you only do translation, but we've just got this guy, we just need someone with him while he checks out this machine. You'll be like, shit yeah bro, sign me up, where do you want me? Yeah, everyone gets there eventually. If you're sitting there thinking, oh, but I don't want to do all those different things, that's because you're still struggling under those popularised, meaningless categories. They're not different things. They're all the same thing. Translation has barely begun as a profession. If you hope to ever derive benefit from being seen as professional, then you have a duty to contribute more of your time to the development of the profession than any other profession, sadly. They've got several hundred years head start on us, yeah? There are many, unfortunately, weak-willed translators impatient for validation who think that claiming a specialisation that is familiar to their powerful clients is a shortcut to respect. This behaviour demeans us and prostitutes our good name for short-term financial gain and shallow emotional gratification. It's telling people what they want to hear and not what they need to hear. Which brings me to Nati have, look, they don't know what they had. They don't know what they've destroyed. For 40 years, Nati had the most brilliant attribute, which was that it was just about translation. It wasn't IEC, it wasn't judicial interpreters, it wasn't Spanish, it wasn't language specific, it wasn't anything trying to categorize people. It was just translation. It provided the perfect launching space for people to go out into the world and tell this message. But with the introduction of specialised tests, they are sometimes like a caveman trying to drive a space shuttle. They've surrendered their support for people who can't see what an honour it is for us to be alive now, making original, formative and authentic contributions to the very birth of a profession, and who instead, they just want a pat on the head for sounding like their clients. When all along the task was simply to sound like a translator and to train the world to understand what a translator sounds like. And ironically, those who went to get their specialist legal and medical credential will not be rewarded for their efforts. I predict the usual politicking. They'll erect barriers, disparage their own colleagues for taking work for which they're not qualified. They will rail at the agencies for not recognising how special they are and paying more like they were promised. They'll go whinging to Nati and governments and demand more intervention. There's nothing wrong with studying these things and sitting an exam, I guess. The problem is that it's customer facing and it panders to customer ignorance. That's the problem. But that's my talk, basically. If you loved it, come around for lunch. Also, if you hated it. I just love lunch. Thank you. Can I just point out, I didn't think I'd fit this in, but I've got to fit this in. All of our clients live in silos. They all think that their world is totally unique. And they're so wrong, and the people who know that are translators. Yeah. I'll tell you a true life story. This was 1 week and then another week. I had to look up hydrodynamic analysis in 3D modelling. Yeah? I had to read up about that. Why? Because I was working in a company that has built automatic cell sorting machines for cervical cancer analysis, medical instruments, yeah? But I had done all of that research. The very next week I was working at Kenworth Trucks, where they design cabins. The same science was discussed. And if you told them, oh yeah, the medical instrument, they'd be like, what? And the medical instrument was like, trucks. They don't understand how common all of this stuff is. We do. There's another song we could be singing to the world, but we don't. We adopt their stupid little categories and say, oh, I'm a legal interpreter. What the hell is a legal interpreter? We live in the free West. A courtroom is a place where anyone can say anything in any register on any topic. If you go to court and have to translate medical records or a witness, is it medical or legal? It's just so stupid.